Hey guys, my name's Jordan and welcome to my TPOT episode rankings as of TPOT 16. I know TPOT 17's around the corner, but I just wanted to get this out before then. If you like this video and want to see more of these types of videos, then subscribe because I'm completely down to make these. Anyways, enjoy this video ranking every TPOT episode from worst to best. Sorry TPOT 4 fans, but this episode was really just a waste. I mean, 30 minutes for a TPOT episode, and literally, nothing happened. The elimination might be, the only interesting part of the episode, honestly. I mean, the challenge had potential, but they did nothing with that. The only other cool part of the episode was the references, a lot of the locations like David Land and Yo-Yo Land were pretty cool, but they did nothing with that. Like I just said, there was a lot of stuff in the episode, but there was no action until the very end. And that's why I think TPOT 4 is the worst TPOT episode. It isn't BFB post splits kind of bad, but it's definitely the worst in TPOT. And every other episode at least has stuff going on. It only gets up from here, right? So TPOT 6 is also pretty bad, and what makes this almost as bad as TPOT 4? It's the meetup episode. This was really disappointing for a meetup episode. At least there were things going on in this episode, but this episode was just really disappointing. But at least it's not as bad as TPOT 4 because there were actually things going on. I will say though, this was probably Just Not's best episode, so props to that. Also, 4 and X's return in TPOT 6 wasn't really the best executed, so I think they could do better on that. But overall, not a great episode, not even a good episode, but it's better than TPOT 4. This is already an improvement from the last two, due to there being story stuff like Clock and Winter, for example. That was a fun dynamic, and TPOT 4 and 5 and 6 as well didn't really show that much, even though TPOT 3 was clearly leading on to something good. At least TPOT 7 made up for it, but we'll talk about that later. Anyways, as for the actual episode, I may be a little biased because I really love amusement parks, but this was a pretty nice episode. The challenge was nice, the character interactions were nice, maybe not as fleshed out as it was kind of rushed a bit, but still pretty good and a huge improvement over the other two so far. I liked TPOT 11, but it was slightly disappointing. This was referred to as a really hyped up episode due to it being all about the Exiters, but it just didn't live up to the expectations. I mean, it's a great episode. It explored a lot of underrated characters' personalities, like Fiery Jr., Stapy, Roboti, David. I could just keep naming people, but this was a pretty low-key episode. It was good, it wasn't too good, it did what it needed to. One flaw I think it is, they made 4 way too nerfed here. I mean, BFB 4 would have absolutely destroyed them. I mean, it was kind of unrealistic how 4 acted, but other than that, I think it was a pretty good episode. Not the best, not the worst, but it'll be in the number 13 slot. Speaking of 13... Okay, next is probably, in my opinion, the most overrated TPOT episode. Yes, even more than episode 6. Yeah, that's TPOT 13. I know that's an unpopular opinion since most people love this episode to death, but I just don't see the appeal. I mean, the one stuff was pretty good, and I think most people love this episode because of the animation, and I don't blame them. That was the biggest bright spot of the episode. The animation was amazing, so props to the animators that got hired, I think, this episode. But as for the actual episode, it wasn't the best. I mean, the debut Cake at Steak was pretty cool, and I guess Barf Bag's elimination was pretty cool. this doesn't affect the episode since it's not the writer's fault, but why did y'all eliminate Needle? I mean, she was like one of the best characters. But anyways, as for the actual episode, the challenge was and Team 2 was basically non-existent at this episode. I mean, like, they were boring this episode. Was pretty mid this episode as well. The Death Pact fighting scene was amazing, but those very few positives can't really outweigh some of the negatives of this episode. That's why it's pretty low on this list, but it was still a pretty decent episode.
Anyone have any ideas? Winner?
Let's fill bottle with the lake.
Oh my god, she actually had a new line! Anyways, for TPOT 5, this was a visible improvement over the last two episodes, TPOT 3 and TPOT 4. I loved the challenge of this episode, even though it was really predictable, and this was probably the best executed episode of the dark era of TPOT 3 through 6. I mean, there was plenty of fun moments of the episode, like the entire TPOT audience being flabbergasted that Ice Cube got new lines, Needle doing something for the first time in TPOT, and Fry standing up to Puffball and them becoming a duo for an episode. That was all a really fun episode, and I think it's actually pretty underrated when it comes to the TPOT episodes, so hopefully it gets more recognition. And that wraps the C tier episodes. TPOT 7 begins our B tier, and it's a really great episode. It's the beginning of the really good era of TPOT, so TPOT 7 through now. It finally brought back arcs. I mean, there were so many arcs in this episode, like Death Pact finally turning on each other, which made them all better, lightning snapping during the elimination, the continuation of the Clock and Winner arc, Basketball and Robot Flower having an arc, the challenge was really cool, and this was just a really amazing episode. I mean, there was so much going on, and even though some teams got sidelined hard, like Just Not in Teammates, for example, it was still a really great episode, and it marked the beginning of a new era of TPOT. Now time for the most overhated episode in my opinion, Episode 8. People say this was like really rushed, but I honestly disagree. Sure, it only took like 1.5 months to make, but there was a lot in this episode. I mean, like, the challenge was really cool. It was a cool callback to the very first episode, and they actually executed it really well, and the continuation of some arcs that happened previous episode occur. And also, Tu and Gaty's therapy session thingy was also really cool. Glad they brought that back. Anyways, yeah, I think this is a really underrated and overhated episode. Sure, it only took a little bit to make, but they executed it really good, and I don't see why people hate on it. I mean, hopefully people like it again, and that's why it's in my number 9 spot, even ahead of episodes that you wouldn't expect. Now time for a recent TPOT episode, TPOT 14. This one was really good as well. I mean, there wasn't that much when it came to arcs, since we just came from a very heavy episode, as TPOT 13 was pretty plot heavy, but for a silly episode, TPOT 14 really did a good job. Kind of reminded me of TPOT 5 in a way, as it was really good executed, but didn't need to be all serious. The elimination was peak. The end of the challenge where it got like really intense felt like a BFDIA episode in a way, and I actually really loved this episode, and I think it's actually somewhat underrated. And we got to see the return of Lewis. Oh my gosh. Okay, but seriously, this was a really good episode. There's not much else to say, so I'll just move on to the next one.
I got it!
Now we've reached our very first TPOT episode. I think the episode was really good, and it did a good job at being the introductory episode, so props to that. And as an episode itself, it still lands in the top half of my rankings, so it really did age well. The team dynamics were funny, the episode was enjoyable, the challenge was enjoyable, the debut was nice, and glad 2 people debuted instead of 1, cause we wouldn't have seen Price Tag if it was just 1. I think this episode did a really good job at setting the foundation for both the character dynamics and the arcs for the season. So this is why Teapot 1 lands in the top half of my rankings. It was just a great introductory episode. Team Swap. And that was one of many things that happened in this episode. This was a very heavy episode, and this is what a meetup episode should feel like. Looking at you, TPOT 6. But yeah, like I said, there was a lot of things that happened, including a team swap that made 4 teams of 6. The teams, for the most part, are actually really great. Oh, and almost forgot to mention that 1 was introduced in this episode, and honestly, I hope the next meetup episode is just like this. Also, I went to the meetup last year, so I got to experience this firsthand. And I really loved the episode. The challenge was cool, the new dynamics were pretty cool, and just overall a really cool episode. As someone who waited for Teapot 2 all the way back then, I could say that it was totally worth the wait. If there was one word to describe this episode, I would just say it was fun. I mean, the entire challenge was just fun, stacking blocks. I didn't know stacking blocks would turn into such a huge thing, and so many things happened in this episode despite the challenge being so simple. It reminded me of a BFDIA episode, but even better. And almost everyone got like a good amount of screen time. I'll admit the challenge was kind of slow, but that's what happens when the challenge is 25 minutes. Obviously, there's gonna be a lot of screen time. Oh, and I totally forgot to mention this, but Teardrop joining was very fun to watch. She was a very good part of early Teapot, so happy that happened. Anyways, that's why Teapot 2 is in my top 5. Teapot 9 was such a cinematic episode. From start to finish, there was just so much action. The eliminations were really good. The zombie theme was really fun to watch. And it was basically Teapot 13, but earlier, and much better actually. But first of all, Teammates was at its best this episode. Pen was doing really good by herself without Coiny for once. Needle had a good role. Gaty had a really great thing with 2. Not just teammates, every team actually had a really important role, except for the S kind of. But this was a really fun episode to watch. And at the very end of the episode, it introduced 1! But yeah, there's not much else to say about Teapot 9, so I'll just skip right to the podium. Kicking off the top 3 is our most recent Teapot episode, Teapot 16. There was so much going on in this episode, and I just loved every second of this episode. The whole beginning few scenes with Ice Cube, Fanny, and even Yellowface were like really fun to watch. 4 and X actually hosting a episode was a nice change of pace. And the challenge was amazing. I mean, almost everyone had a huge role in the episode, and Cloudyay was especially amazing this episode. Yellowface and Price Tag's friendship was really fun to watch. Book and Winner also make a great friendship. Pen and Lie was amazing. Like I said, the entire Cloudyay arc with Pencil, Golf Ball, and Donut leading it is just really interesting, and I wonder where they'll go with that. I hope they don't get eliminated. The entire episode, including the animation, was amazing, and there's a lot to discover, like Roboti's waterfall too. This episode was just a really fun one to watch, especially with 4 and X coming back. I hope they actually stay for another episode or 2 because I actually really like them as hosts, and I actually kind of miss them from BFB. Anyways, the runner-up episode is Teapot 10 is the second best episode in Teapot in my opinion. The last elimination episode of Phase 1 was peak, And honestly, I see why they left off Phase 1 the way it did. This was an epic conclusion to the dynamics and arcs we had in Phase 1. This might be one of the best executed BFDI episodes of all time. Every single team had their arc in this episode, and every single team was great in this episode. The challenge was very unique. I mean, teams going inside one member's nightmare to try to recover them and help them. It's just really cool. And I really love this episode. I mean, from start to finish, just so many things happening. Like the winner and loser backstory is finally revealed. Black Hole and Fanny's arc is resolved. Book has an arc of her own this episode. Which we haven't seen from her all season. Even Barfbag gets personality this episode, and you know an episode's good when that happens. I could just keep going on and on about how peak this episode was. But there's only one episode better than it, and that is... TPOT 15 is not only the best episode in BFDI history, but honestly, the best episode in Object Show history. It's that good. This episode was a huge blast to the past with so many references and nods to old BFDI related things, and I love every moment of it. And one literally letting the entire world end if Gaty didn't sign their deal. That's crazy. I loved every team this episode. Every team had its role. Death Pact yet again was the team that kept trying to fix the past. Cloudyay was the team that tried doing whatever just to win the challenge, especially Pencil. And Team 2 and do were just trying to win, but also cared about the timeline. So many old seasons and things from old seasons were referenced here. Even TFI, Total Fiery Island, was referenced. And can we just get started on how crazy that end of the world scene was, aka the one playing in the video right now? The animators, everyone who worked on this episode was just cooking. I know I'm just rambling on about it, but like there were so many good things. Also, Pencil's crash out. That was justified in my opinion, but like this episode was just straight up crazy. And it was a really great 15th anniversary present and a really good two-parter to BFDIA 17. And that's why I think TPOT 15 is the best episode in Object Show history. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like and subscribe, especially if you want to see more of these types of videos, because that would give me a lot more motivation. And have a good day!